everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm going to be doing an artist overview of the artist Gareth Brookes. I think I've got most, if not all, of his works. I first got turned on to Gareth's work with this book, The Dancing Plague. Menachem at Escape Pod Comics sent this over as part of the first retailer grab bag haul that I got from Menachem. This was a book that blew me away, something that I would have foolishly passed over, I'm sure, if I'd been in a store just given, too quick of a judgment of the art. But was so impressed with this book that I went out and bought the rest of Brooks's work. I did a review of this book in that video, so I don't want to go too far into it. But for people who haven't seen that video, this book, The Dancing Plague, follows a woman. It's been a minute since I read this. I think her name is Mary, in 1518, and there's an outbreak of a dancing plague, which is where people just start randomly dancing. It also follows Mary throughout her life as someone who's very religiously devout and thinks she has visions from God that show her like demons possessing people and stuff, and so she thinks she can see the demons that are possessing the people who are dancing. Like here, you get a look at that. But beyond a really compelling story, what really fascinated me about this book was the way it was made. It's made with what's called pyrography. So Brookes defines that for us as making drawings through means of heated implements. So basically burning. So these images here, I don't know if they're burned in wood or burned onto the canvas, but they're created through burning. And then there are plenty of other elements in the book where you can see this is like a canvas that he's done embroidery onto to create the images. Embroidery is a big part of his work, and really is able to keep coming back to that medium and finding narrative reasons to do so. So in this work, there's, you're looking at like medieval type of artwork. So he's also a real like stylistic chameleon. He can draw in a lot of different ways. And I think I would have passed over the book because I would looked at it and said, it's crude drawing. But the crude drawing is to go with the story. It's a story of medieval times. And so you're looking at like Bayeux tapestry and other things that are embroidered like that. There's other narrative reasons for it too. And then the burning has to do with the character, being burned as a witch for her visions. So there's narrative reasons for all the material choices he's making. This book just really astonished me. I was really pleased with it. This is exactly the kind of comic that I want. And so I went out and got the rest of Brooks's work, hoping it would be the same. And it is. Some of them, these first few that I'll show you, these are more like experiments. But anytime he does like a full finished piece, it's absolutely stunning work. But even his experiments are fun and worth looking at. This one is hand stitched together, so there can't be many of these out there. It's on the covers like this really nice like rice paper with the vellum. This looks hand drawn on the back. This looks like he might have gone and hand redrawn the cover on the back. It's definitely signed. And then everything's printed on really nice paper. And this one's just a trippy, and that's how he advertised it, as like a silent psychedelic work. And so just all this mark making. This is called The Land of My Heart Chokes in Its Abundance. And it's just a strange book. There's a lot of like symbolism and these weird little like half child characters with symbols on their head. It's definitely a story about fitting into the system or not, loosely veiled. We have a call out to Matisse there. One thing that I really liked about this book is that all of the stitching on the outside that holds it together comes off into the inside. It makes me wonder about like why this page in particular, or if this is just an accident of the one I got. I don't know, but it's fun to have something physical like that. It's too bad it's so hard to mass produce books that have physical aspects like this. It's really a bummer because it adds so much. And then at the end here, when he introduces this golden color, it's just really visually stunning to me. So this book is definitely just kind of a visual pleasure. There's a meaning in there. Like I said, it has something about cutting against the system that you're raised in. But to me, it's just more like an art object type of thing. Another really cool experiment, this one came in 2021. I don't know when this one was made, is Home. This one I had a hard time connecting with the story because it's just a bunch of, like, the place where I walked along the wall as tall as my dad, the place where I did this, the place where I did that. So it's Brookes like remembering places, and it says in the back that the images are based on Google Street View images. So he obviously went back to places that meant something to him. I don't know if he doesn't live in his hometown anymore or something like that. That's not explained. But that kind of thing is like, this is something that mattered to the artist. This is something the artists need to do for themselves. It's beautiful, but it doesn't emotionally land with me. What is very cool about it, though, is the way in which it's made. So it's drawn on paper towels with charcoal and ink. And Brookes really takes advantage of the fact that the ink's going to bleed through the paper, or you're going to be able to see through the very flimsy paper towels. So drawing the character with the paper towel folded, I'm not sure if the charcoal is being seen through or if it's like being folded and stamped. You know, it's picking up just the loose like carbon paper. You can see it like the drawing. I mean, it's amazing that the paper hasn't ripped. So I like that play with physical materials. That's such a part of Brookes's work. Like each project has some different type of paper or some different way that really seems to mean something. So that's really cool in this book. I think it's a really fun material exploration. The ones to me where it's most effective is this, where when it unfolds, it looks kind of like a full building still in 2-point perspective. So really cool way of making a book, and for that reason alone, I appreciate this one, Home. Can I Borrow Your Toilet? I think this is maybe the earliest work. It feels like an early work. Again, this interest in material. So the story, I'm assuming, is autobiographical, but is like working at a warehouse dealing with cardboard boxes. I think it would have been cooler if the whole book would have been drawn on the cardboard boxes, like the cover. That's something that he would do now, I think. But this is 2008, so this is an earlier work. This one's interesting because it shows more of like technical drawing ability, a lot of like realistic imagery with cross-hatching, something that, given the other works of his, I wasn't expecting this type of art, this really technically precise type of stuff, since he's usually, I don't want to say clumsy, but it's more crude, like the dancing play, simpler. It's not crude. It's very sophisticated stuff. But I don't know. It's just interesting to see this type of like Gerhard crosshatch, or also make me think of Gary Spencer Millage, who did Strange Haven type of vibe to it. This one, I don't know. It didn't really do much for me. It's just like a day in the life of someone working at a warehouse, and kind of the different characters that they encounter, the different drivers that come in. That's really about it for this one. I think this is a kind of an early attempt at making something. To me, it's not even really. It's a comic. It's like in between comic and illustrated book. Well, it's nice to get a full view of someone's work. So I'm very happy that I have that still. Okay, on to the books that I think are really good, which are most of them. Threadbare. This is a pretty short book, but goddamn is it emotionally impactful in a short little space. I gotta be careful flipping through it because some of it's pretty illicit. This is another one that is obviously embroidered. It's done on this raw canvas, like with the Dancing Plague. I really like that look. I wish like there was enough money to print these things like tactily where you could feel it. With the Dancing Plague, I almost wonder if there's the original version that's just all the original embroideries. This one, because he does this thing where you've got the front and the back, and those don't always line up. I don't think you could actually have this be one edition of the real thing. But all embroidered, and again, the embroidery, like, mean something in the book. It's talking about kind of the threads that bind us in life. So that makes sense. The book is supposedly based on actual conversation that Brookes heard. He's saying, can hear two elderly ladies on the train talking very candidly and movingly about the last time they were in love. Hope my pen doesn't run out. And he's texting that to somebody. And he had been asking them, or no, this is the old lady talking about the last time she was in love. And whoever he's texting is like, oh my God, take notes. And I'm assuming this is who he's texting. So who he's texting, they wind up having a little bit of a, like a little back and forth sext in the images. So there's them like sexting each other dirty images while in these embroidered style, while the dialogue that's running are the two old women talking about the last times they were in love. One of them talking about, she's been married, but the only person she loved was someone when she was 15. So I think that really the way the art is made also speaks to that, because a lot of the times, like on the cover and the inside front cover, and like on this page here, he's showing you both sides of the embroidery. He's showing you like, this is the side that you're supposed to see, because when you make an embroidery, it's like there's the one clean image that faces front. I used to frame these things all the time, and you always have to be careful, like don't accidentally frame the bad side. I mean, it should be pretty obvious, but if you're not paying attention, I think one time I framed the bad side and it was like I didn't do the whole thing. So it's like the side that has the image that you're supposed to see, the front facing side, what you present, versus like the mess that you hide behind that holds this together. And when people are talking about love and being in a marriage, but they only ever really loved someone that they knew when they were 15, like to me, this visually speaks to that. It's like the outside that we present and kind of the messy stuff going on underneath. So I think that thematically ties in really well, his use of embroidery with what's going on in the story. And yeah, just like compositionally, the way he'll use the strings to show people tied together and stuff. It's a really quick read, but man, it's like impactful. Both women have a story and things that they say where it's like I no wonder he was sitting on the train like, oh my God, I gotta write this down, like this is amazing content. And if he made it up and this is all just a made up story, even better. But I cannot recommend this book enough. This is a really great piece of work. I don't see what date it was made, but really fantastic piece, pretty short form. And then his two other long form works besides The Dancing Plague were just stunning, absolutely stunning to me. Such creative writing. Like the stories are really creative, and then again, the materials he uses is really interesting. And I don't want to say too much about them. I don't want to give anything away, really, but I want to try and describe them. So this one, the Black Project, it's another embroidered book. This was published by Myriad Editions, and this is 2013. So this one's all embroidery, and then it looks like woodblock or lino cuts. And I don't know if those lino cuts, it looks like they've been cut out and pasted onto the canvas. So I think this is all done physically, but there might be some Photoshop to it all. And this one looks like he's writing with ink on the fabric. So again, you get that fabric and you get the embroidery, and then you have all this lettering. The lettering that's in cursive, excuse me, this is like the diary almost of a young man, and this young man's talking about his first love, the first time I fell in love, and very quickly you start to realize that his first love is a woman he created using his mom's bra, some grapefruits, a pillow, some tights, and some gloves that he found, and a picture of a girl he finds attractive, and he puts together this fake girl and tries to figure out how to have sex with it. And it's just like such a viscerally uncomfortable story. And then something happens and he has to get rid of that girl. And so he starts building another girl. And you go through this series of basically sex dolls that this kid builds for himself. And it's just such an intense book. like such an intense read. I don't want to go at all into like the details of it because it's quite surprising how it ends. The crazy thing is I had no idea while reading it where it was going. Like every page was just like, "Oh my god, where does this go next? How much worse can it get?" Like, but I couldn't figure out what it was going to be in the end. And it really really surprised me. It's hard to be surprised when you don't have any expectations, but it still surprised me, and that's all I'll say about it. So really love this book. It's unsettling, but also surprisingly tender, really well made. Again, the embroidery matters to the story because this kid starts to learn to embroider so he can make his sex doll girlfriends look better. He can be more proficient at making them. Yeah, it's a strange book, like one of the weirder but more engaging things I've read in a long time. And then this book, A Thousand Colored Castles, also by Myriad, in a nice hardcover. And this has like a canvas on it. And man, I wish all his books could have that as pages, but that would probably cost way too much. This one has got none of the embroidery. It looks like it's pieces of wood that have been painted black and then drawn on with pastels. And man, this book is just heart-wrenching. And really interesting story. Again, I don't want to give away too much of it because there's a lot of like, I don't know, just yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much. But the basics of it is there's Fred and Miriam, and they're a couple, an elderly couple, and he's just kind of like your standard old dude, just plodding through the program of life, complaining about the neighbors. And Miriam is just this very quiet, woman who's kind of putting up with this guy. But you start to realize she's like has dementia or something. He describes later in the book the condition she has is purely visual, apparently not a mental illness. But it seems like she's having dementia and seeing these plants and these people show up in places they shouldn't be. She's having hallucinations, and she's just kind of quietly keeping it to herself while he goes on complaining about the neighbor's yard and all of this stuff. She's just being like this quiet wife who's visualizing soldiers with ladders on their head. And it's just really really sad story of this couple. It's a sad, scary state in a number of ways. It's sad in that I think everyone's scared of their relationship falling into that just complete drudgery of the repetition of the day, but like you can't really avoid that, especially I've been together 50, 60 years, however long this couple's been together. But then the fear that one of the people loses their mind in some way or has some illness is just devastating. On this page, you see some really beautiful colors. She gets up at night and she's writing him a letter. Like, she hasn't really told it. She's keeping this all to herself. And she's saying, I'm losing my mind. Something's going wrong with me. I don't want to be a burden to you. And that's like, especially with the idea of dementia, is just particularly gut punch, like makes me choke up, because Tori lost her mother to a particularly bad, severe dementia. My grandmother had pretty bad Alzheimer's near the end. So I think that hangs over our relationship. Like, we both worry about who's going to be the one to lose their mind and who's going to be the one that's left over to take care of watching the person that they love disappear. And I think both of us would be tempted to, once we realize that there's no going back, to like take the burden away from the other one, but neither one of us would be happy if the other one just left. And it's like, no, that's the burden that I don't want to bear, but I will, like, rather than lose you. So that's just been kind of something that's been in our relationship almost from the beginning, as a worry. So this book really gets to me. And I mean, luckily, she goes and she burns the letter. There's more to the story than that, but I don't really want to go into it. Because I think this is a book you just need to read. But that's the emotional core of it, is this woman, you know, not losing her mind, but she's losing her grasp on reality because she's having all these crazy visions. And there's just all this awesome imagery of like things coming unhinged, like visual things coming unhinged, like this guy's tie just goes all over the place. So really beautiful book, really different type of art style. Again, like very sophisticated but very simple. So I think it would be easy to just flip through it and go, whatever. But the more you look at it, the more sophisticated it is, and the more compelling it is. And then when you read it, it's just, it's absolutely heartbreaking book. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I love this book. I just finished reading it and I love it. I love it to death. And then this one here afterwards, I'm really glad I saved this till last. When reading, I'm glad that I saw that this contained sequels to The Black Project and A Thousand Colored Castles. It really if you get the other two books, you need to order this one from his website, because it's like too, again, I don't want to talk too much about what the story in these are, because it could give away what's going on in the other two. But the sequel to The Black Project has the kid who grew up with the sex dolls. He's now 43 and working in an office, and it has his story in there, and it's a really fun, like, futuristic. These are almost like Black Mirror episodes. He calls them thought projects based on the self-indulgent thought experiments. I encourage the reader to not think of these as definitive sequels, more as self-indulgent thought experiments. So, yeah, they're like thematic Black Mirror thought experiments about taking those other two stories into the future in kind of like a Black Mirror type of way. So it has that one. I really don't want to go into it any further because it would spoil this read and the other read. And then A Thousand Colored Castles, I could describe a little bit more what's going on in this one, to give you a sense of the flavor of it. But it starts with all these images of like war going on in the neighborhood of Fred and Miriam. And this is actually an image from the first book of her hallucinating this burning car. So you start out thinking, well, this is just how she's hallucinating now. But then the implication is the world actually is going to shit like this. And everyone, including Fred, is now strapped into like augmented reality or virtual reality headsets. And so they're looking outside and having intentionally forced hallucinations, and that maybe she's seeing the world as it really is, or she's seeing like, her visions and they're seeing their visions, and no one sees reality anymore. And I just thought, what a great emotional, what a great thematic follow-up to such an emotional story, where you're like, how tragic it would be to have your sense of reality upset like that, and how it upset your relationship, and then juxtapose that against the fact that we're like careening towards that in society. Very real. We're talking about heads-up display augmented reality, which would be exactly this kind of thing. Oh, the new Fiona filter. I'll just map this over and I see her how I want to see it. Oh, I want to see today is Christmas, and so I'm going to map some Christmas tree stuff. I guess today's Easter while I'm recording this, so I could have an Easter bunny running around augmented reality if I wanted to. This thing that was devastating to this woman's life and relationship, everyone's just like willingly doing. And then the disconnect that's causing, where she's hallucinating, they're hallucinating, God knows what's real. Fuck, this is such a good, it's so good. This is all so good. So yeah, I can't recommend Gareth Brookes' stuff enough. I can't thank Menachem enough for sending me The Dancing Plague and turning me down this lane. This is exactly what I want out of comics. This, I think, was like the dream of what comics could be. This, go out and absolutely buy everything Gareth Brookes has done. If you're a little bit leery of the more experimental stuff, like at least Threadbare, The Black Project afterwards, Thousand Colored Castles, and The Dancing Plague. These are all like totally readable stories, emotionally impactful. The other 3 books are a little bit more experimental, but these 5 books, like I just cannot recommend these enough, and I cannot wait for whatever else Gareth Brookes does. I think we should just all be dumping our money into creators like this to make sure that they keep working and keep creating. I hope Gareth Brookes has a long and prolific career. I want to read more. Like, every one of these just surprised me, and it's like I don't even know how people come up with stuff this good and this creative. Yeah, it's just awesome stuff. So please support this artist. I really think you'll enjoy these books if you like good comics and good stories at all. So I hope you all get this stuff. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Yeah, thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.